Question: why does certainty feel so good? And why does it cost so much? I'm Kit Rodgers. I've got questions. Certainty feels incredible. It feels clean. It feels stabilizing. It feels like standing on bedrock after spending too long sinking into the mud. When you're certain, you don't have to keep checking yourself. You don't have to keep asking questions. You don't have to keep listening. Certainty quiets the noise. And if you've lived long enough in chaos, violence, grief, moral ambiguity, unfinished stories, certainty doesn't just feel good, it feels necessary. And I think that's why people chase it. Not because they're stupid, not because they're malicious, but because uncertainty is exhausting. And certainty promises rest. Certainty gives you three things immediately. First, relief. The oscillation stops. The argument ends. Second, identity. You don't just hold a belief. You are the kind of person who holds it. And third, permission. Once you're certain, you don't have to keep checking whether you're causing harm. You already know you're right. That's intoxicating. How can it not be? This is why certainty spreads faster than nuance. Why slogans outperform essays. Why people would rather be wrong together than uncertain alone. Certainty doesn't just organize thought, it organizes the certain into tribes. And once belief becomes a badge in that tribe, doubt becomes treason. Certainty always exacts a price. Once you're certain, curiosity becomes unnecessary. Listening becomes optional. Revision becomes betrayal. Bertrand Russell warned that certainty is often ignorance wearing confidence like a tailored suit. And modern psychology agrees. The more certain someone becomes, the less information they actually process. Certainty doesn't sharpen perception. It narrows it. John Dewey saw this as a failure of growth. When beliefs stop being experimental, they stop being intelligent. Dennett puts it bluntly. He says that belief systems that can't tolerate correction don't evolve. They calcify. Eastern philosophy diagnosed the same problem a long, long time ago. Buddhism just calls it attachment. Taoism calls it resistance to the flow. The Bhagavad Gita warns against clinging to outcomes as if certainty were control. Different traditions. Same diagnosis. I want to read a few lines from my journal, not as a conclusion, just as a snapshot of where my thinking actually was on a real day. Let's see. Okay. Never mistake fear for integrity. When you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, remember that most of the bulk is ego. A person who draws hard lines eventually becomes secure or secured, walled in behind those self-perpetuating boundaries. I didn't write that for clarity. I wrote it because something felt off. Because certainty has a way of disguising itself as virtue, and fear has a way of asking to be called principle. Certainty doesn't last long out here. The land doesn't care what I'm convinced of. If I'm certain the fence will hold, and it can't, the horses correct me immediately. If I'm certain the weather will cooperate on the edge of the Tennessee Plateau, I guarantee you it will not. The trails revise my plans. The creeks ignore my expectations. Out here, belief becomes practice, attention, adjustment, responsiveness. Walking these paths reminds me of something else I wrote, that what works is repetition, not intention. Certainty doesn't survive contact with reality for long, and the land doesn't punish you for being wrong. It just keeps going. So here's where I'm landing for now. Certainty feels good because it reduces cognitive pain. It quiets anxiety. It simplifies decision making. But the cost of certainty is flexibility, and flexibility is what life actually requires. Pragmatism, as I understand it, gives me permission to hold beliefs seriously, but to grip them lightly. Buddhism would call that non-attachment. Taoism would call it alignment. Dewey would call it growth. I just call it livable. The goal is not to live without beliefs. The goal is to live without beliefs that require ignorance, which may be more suitably referred to, if I may coin a term, ignoritude, or more plainly, an ignorative attitude. Certainty comforts, curiosity sustains. Next time we'll talk about identity, how beliefs turn into costumes, and how hard they are to take off once they fit. Love you. Mean it.